Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy and Nate. Today, we are going to be discussing Invest 92L or potential tropical cyclone Claudette. Yes, we could have our third named storm here in the Gulf of Mexico. Where this will impact and how strong will it be. So if you guys are new to my channel, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media, and that would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate all the support. I also do have timestamps in the description down below so that you guys can check on through and kind of just jump on to specific parts of the video. If you find something that's interesting, feel free to skip to it. So we'll be talking about the tropical system here, but we will also be talking about the severe weather that will be impacting the United States. And we do have a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here today, indicated in this orange for places of northern Iowa and northeastern parts of Iowa, as well as southwestern portions of Wisconsin and southern portions of Minnesota. So that is a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, indicated in orange. If you live in these places up there or around these metropolitan areas, then I highly recommend you guys be weather aware here this evening. And then if you live in the dark green or in the yellow, you're a lesser risk, but not too much of a less risk. The dark green is a 1 out of 5 or a marginal risk, and then the yellow is a 2 out of 5 or a slight risk. So definitely something you're going to want to watch. And then if you're in this light green, that's just a general thunderstorm risk. So it's nothing exactly all too insane. If we take a look at the parameters here, the probability for each parameters, this is the hail parameter, 5% indicated in brown, 15 in yellow, 30 in red. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 1-inch size hail or larger. You also have this little black circle here with dotted lines, and that is indicated as a significant risk for large hail, a 10% chance or greater probability of you seeing 2 inches or greater within a 25-mile radius. Then we also have our wind parameter here, as I said, 5% in brown, 15 in yellow, 30 in red. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts or greater within a 25-mile radius. You still have that significant risk, that hatched risk there right in the middle. And so that could indicate that you could see up to hurricane force winds within a 25-mile radius, 74-mile-per-hour winds or greater. And that is definitely something that people are really going to have to watch out for. So if you live in that area, highly recommend you watch out. And then there's also a decent tornado risk here as well. Excuse me. 2% indicated in green, 5% indicated in brown. So wherever you live, if you live in these areas, and whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius. If we take a look at the high temperatures here, you can see it's going to be pretty hot across the board here in the United States. The West needs rain badly, and it doesn't look like it's going to come anytime soon. It might start to come in the beginning of next week because there's a tropical system that's forming in the Pacific as we speak. And so if that tropical system does move up the coast of Mexico, then you guys could probably get some moisture that could seep in and potentially create a nice little monsoon for you all. So really interesting to watch out for. We're going to monitor it as much as possible, but we're not going to talk about it a whole lot in this video. We'll probably talk about it in future videos. But for the most part, the United States is in very warm to hot temperatures. Up in the north, it gets as high as 70 to 80, and then once you get further south and south, that's when your temperatures start to increase, unless if you're in the Central Plains when you're already in triple digits. So you're already pretty hot compared to places like, say, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, where they're in the 90s. All right, let's take a look at the simulated radar here. Simulated reflectivity, the HRRR. That is the model we're using. If you want to keep up to date with the time, look up at the top right corner. It'll give you all the information you may need, and that'll be a common reoccurrence here within my videos. But just by taking a look at the simulated reflectivity, nothing really happens for the most part. I mean, you have some showers that are kind of going about south of Duluth, but you just have some scattered showers here in the afternoon until it starts to get around 5 to 7 central, to where here in central Wisconsin, you have a lot of showers and thunderstorms that really start to fire off. And as this continues to progress, that'll move on through, as well as showers in northern Iowa. They will also start to really initiate and push on through. And this is what we're watching out for the damaging wind threat. You can even see this little bowing characteristic, which indicates you have a lot of surging wind in behind the storm. And we call that a bow echo, more or less. So a very strong storm that is expected to move on through, and it even gets all the way into southern Wisconsin as well. And as that continues to progress, then you could have showers and thunderstorms well overnight and past midnight, actually, impacting places like Chicago and even Michigan, northern Indiana. So definitely a lot of activity here, to say the least, but not too much here as it heads into 7 a.m. Central Daylight. My gosh, I can't say Central Daylight Time. There we go. Let's take a look at the wind gust swath here according to the HRRR model. This will tell us the highest wind gust for each little frame. And so the highest wind gust here, according to the HRRR here, the bottom right-hand corner, is 95 miles per hour, which is absolutely insane. The HRRR really thinks that this cell is going to become a really strong storm, causing some really strong damaging winds. And so we're definitely going to have to watch out for that as it continues to move on through. It will be an overnight threat for people who live in these areas. So if you have a weather radio, I recommend turning it on. If not, I would highly recommend finding an area that is that has good structure with it, like a brick house or a well-constructed home, more or less, would probably be a better option, or a well-constructed building in any option. Highly recommend taking shelter with that if you live in these areas, because if you live in a mobile home, there's a good chance that it might get blown over or something like that. And then if we take a look at the NAM 3 kilometer, it's not as intense as the HRRR, but you still have some areas to where wind gusts could get in upwards of 60 miles per hour, which that can topple trees and power lines. So it's one of those things where, as I said, you're probably going to want to be in that sturdy structure. All right, here's the day 2 outlook here for Friday. We also have a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale there indicated in that area. 1 out of 5 indicated in the dark green or a marginal. 2 out of 5 is the yellow or a slight, and then the 3 out of 5, which is an enhanced risk. So wherever you live, then you guys, well, if you live in those areas, highly recommend you monitor this very, very carefully. If you live in the any of these metropolitan areas or around those metropolitan areas, that is the type of risk that you guys could potentially get. If we take a look at the parameters here, the hail parameter shows 5% indicated in brown, 15 in yellow. So whatever chance you have, that is your probability of seeing 1-inch size hail or larger. If we take a look at the wind parameter, 5% in brown, 15 in yellow, 30% in red. And so whatever chance is, well, whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 58 mile per hour winds or greater. And then you also have a 5% chance for tornadoes within a 25 mile radius as well, in northern to northeastern portions of Ohio, as well as places near Erie, Pennsylvania. So definitely something to watch out for. You also have a 2% chance for tornadoes here in Louisiana. That'll be because Invest 92L will be coming up at that period. And whether or not it becomes a tropical depression or a tropical storm Claudette at that time will still have to be determined. But something to definitely watch out for as this continues to progress. This is the high temperatures here for Friday, and you can see very warm temperatures across the board for the most part. As I said, it'll be typically 80s and the 70s to 80s in the north, probably 80s for the most part in the northern portion of the United States. And then once you start to head further south and south, obviously it'll get warmer and warmer. But places here in the west, you can see how there is no relief for any of the heat you guys have. As a matter of fact, places from Sacramento down to Bakersfield can expect triple digits, even higher than that. There's some areas near Vegas that can get up to 115, areas south of that in the Grand Canyon to get to 121. That is some very, very hot temperatures, very dry over there. And they're in an exceptional drought. They need a lot of rain, and they haven't been getting any water whatsoever. So hope to God that they get some rain here soon, and they might be able to get some relief here in the beginning of next week, maybe the mid parts of next week. Alrighty, as soon as I try and figure out where my mouse went, that would be greatly appreciated. There we go. Let's take a look at the simulated reflectivity here. And as I said, timing at the top right hand corner, so if you want to follow along, feel free to do so. Just by looking at this, this is the kind of leftovers of the day prior, the severe weather that kind of went on through. But then in the early afternoon hours, you can see some more storms that start to fire off near Toledo, and that'll continue to progress as a prefrontal convection type storms. Then you have a new set of storms that start to form in the early evening hours here, late afternoon, early evening hours, and how that progresses, that will be your major wind threat here. So definitely something that people here in these areas are going to want to monitor. Potential for some severe weather into the overnight hours is also possible as this continues to move on through. But places around the Ohio River could potentially be impacted at around midnight is what I'm thinking. Might be a little bit later than that. Might be a little bit later into the morning on Saturday, but still something that we're going to want to watch out. And I also love how I didn't change that from Friday to Saturday, but you know what? That's okay. It's good enough. It's good enough. But yeah, that's a big wind threat there with an elongated line. We'll even back it up again just a little bit, show you. Look at how elongated this line is right here. Some widespread damaging winds could be possible with this. Now, if we go over here to our wind swath here for the NAM 3 kilometer, the HRRR doesn't reach out this far, or at least it's a lot more inconsistent this far out. And so I just decided to pull the NAM 3 kilometers wind gust swath. But you can see in some of these areas, there is some intense wind gusts. And according to the NAM 3 kilometer, for here, especially around near Toledo, there could potentially be, or that might not be, like here in northwestern Ohio in general, actually, you could have wind gusts in upwards of 74 miles per hour. That's hurricane force winds right there. And just to have a gust up that high is pretty insane, to say the least. So definitely something we're going to want to watch out for that event on Friday. And then here is Saturday's day 3 outlook. Just a bunch of these 1 out of 5s on the severe weather scale or marginal risks across the board here. So nothing really too much to report, but we'll give you guys an update as to what could potentially be potentially happening with those storms in later videos. All right, let's talk about the tropical weather here now. We're going to take a look at the Atlantic 5-day tropical outlook. Here is Invest 92L. We had 2 other areas of interest that we were watching earlier in the week. One was post-tropical cyclone bill or tropical storm bill that went off. And because it moved into more unfavorable conditions off in Canada, it kind of died. We also had another development area here in the main development region, or it's just basically the area between Africa and the Caribbean. And so that area moved into even more unfavorable conditions than Tropical Storm Bill, with a lot of dry air and wind shear. So that thing never really got a chance to fire off. And for that reason, it has not been designated anymore. But we still have Invest 92L with an 80% chance of formation over the next 2 days and a 90% chance of formation over the next 5 days. So we're really going to want to watch out for that cell, especially as it could move further north into places along the coastal areas of the Gulf of Mexico. Then we also have our nice little invest here in the Pacific. This is what I was talking about earlier that could potentially bring some rain. Invest 94E has been recently designated, and it has a 70% chance of formation over the next 2 days, 90% chance of formation over the next 5 days. What I was talking about with how you guys could potentially get some relief was this thing is moving off to the north and west, and if this thing continues to move off to the north and west, a lot of the moisture that tropical systems typically bring with them will continue to rise up to the north, and so you could potentially get some moisture return right within some of these areas here in the southwest, and that could potentially create your monsoon season. So just something to note of. It's not anything anytime soon, but it is still the potential for some rain and relief for you guys that are experiencing an exceptional drought at this moment. Now let's take a look at Invest 92L here. We're going to take a look at the infrared satellite, which basically tells us the cloud tops of these storms here. The reason why we would want to see the cloud tops is because we would want to see how high they are. And because infrared satellite tells us temperature, we could be able to see how high those thunderstorms are just by looking at the tops of the thunderstorms and seeing how cold they are, because the higher you get up in the atmosphere, the colder it typically gets. So we can see how cold some of these thunderstorms are, and we can actually see we've got a lot of thunderstorms here across the board, even some deep convection here or thunderstorm activity across portions of the Yucatan Peninsula, but very strong thunderstorm activity here indicated in these two circles. But we also do have a little bit of general spin right in here within the Bay of Campeche, and so definitely something we're going to want to watch out for as this continues to progress. And you can even see that general spin right within there in the water vapor imagery as this continues to move about. Another thing to note of is that we do have some very dry air here off to the north in the United States, specifically near the deep south. And so that dry air will most likely interact with the tropical system and will basically kind of create a little hole in the side of the tropical system and make it a bit more incomplete. This is a rather traditional beginning season tropical system, so it's not exactly going to be like all well-rounded to where you're going to have thunderstorms all around the tropical system. If you separate a tropical system into quadrants, so you have the northeastern quadrant, northwest off to the left, geez, I cannot, there you go, southwest and southeast. What most likely will happen is, because of that dry air, if it seeps around the backside of it, the southwestern quadrant most likely will not have any thunderstorms. Northwestern is a maybe, depending upon how much moisture wraps around, but the southwestern quadrant will basically have this kind of hole in its side to where there won't be a whole lot of thunderstorm activity. And tropical systems want as much moisture as possible, and because the dry air is seeping around, you don't really have a lot of that moisture, and so you don't really have those thunderstorms to really kind of protect the tropical system and allow it to intensify further. Now, if we take a look at the spaghetti models here, the GFS is actually starting to pick up on this and is starting to give out more model guidance with it. So with these ensembles, it's actually telling us all sorts of different pathways and directions within one giant run. It's like these little mini runs that disperse from one specific area to form one giant consensus. And so you can see these little lines here as this continues to move about, and the general track here is obviously north. The tropical system is moving north, but then it heads into places like either Texas or Louisiana, and then curling off further towards the east, moving through places of the deep south, even into the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. But the track right here, the main part here, is Louisiana seems to be the area to watch. For the most part, you could watch Texas maybe with a landfall. You could watch areas like Mississippi and Alabama with a landfall, but as of right now, it seems Louisiana seems to be the crosshair. And someone just subscribed, so thank you so much for the subscription in the middle of my video. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, so there's the spaghetti models for the GEFS. If we take a look at the multi-spaghetti model guidance, it takes a bunch of different other models and shows as to what they're thinking. You can see the general consensus is that it also thinks as well that Louisiana most likely will be impacted or be the place that this storm will make landfall. You do have a couple models that say it could go off into Florida. You also have a couple models that say it could go off into Texas. But the main general consensus is that most of these models here think that it's going to head off into Louisiana. Now, if we take a look at the model intensity guidance, most of these models think that it could intensify into a tropical storm and then potentially weaken back into a tropical depression. A couple of these models think that it's going to stay below tropical storm strength. But personally, with the ingredients out there in this in the Gulf, I do think it could potentially go into a tropical storm status. The GFS the GFS and the Euro are not in this model intensity guidance here, so they're not showing their input either, but they actually show that this could potentially be a tropical storm as well. Now, if we take a look at the GFS simulated radar here, which, as I said, if you want to take a look at the timings, top right-hand corner is the best place to go to. Just by looking at the simulated radar, you can see already there's that general spin in the atmosphere right here with these little isobars. And they indicate the pressure, so the lower the pressure, stronger the tropical system it typically is. 1014, 1012, 1010. right within there. And so there is your potential for your tropical system to start to set up. And so as this continues to progress further into Friday, you can see how this tropical system really tries to consolidate here in the central portions of the Gulf of Mexico. A huge jump from south to north, because you do have another area of low pressure that develops north of the original one. And that is really interesting to say the least, because that is a 1007 millibar pressure system right within there. And as that continues to head up further north, it kind of stalls out a little bit after forming a new low pressure system. And then by Friday night into Saturday morning, that is when you could potentially see your impacts and your landfall onto the United States. According to this run of the GFS, this actually takes it here in the southeastern portions of Louisiana. But the one thing that I do want to point out here is, as I said before, if you separate the storm into quadrants, it's exactly what I said here before. Southwestern portion, or the southwestern quadrant, doesn't really get a whole lot of thunderstorms. According to the GFS, the northwestern quadrant doesn't get a whole lot of thunderstorms either, but a lot of it will most likely be consolidated on the eastern side of the tropical system, and that's where most of the rain will most likely occur, and that's where most of the flooding will be. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to watch out for as that continues to progress. But then by Saturday evening into Sunday morning, and even into Sunday afternoon, the storm moves out of your general vicinity, and that's when it will move back off into the Atlantic by around Monday. So now we're going to take a look at the multi-model surface winds here. It took me a little bit to get this all set up here, but we do have 3 different models to look at. We have the GFS, which is on the top left. We have the Euro, which is on the top right. And then we have the HWRF model at the bottom right there. Now, there's a couple reasons why I'm showing you all the surface winds. First off, this is basically what they use to designate tropical systems for surface winds. So, you know, they don't use winds higher than that. They want to figure out what's happening at the surface. And so this is a good way to see it, although it could be a little bit exaggerated at some points. And then the other thing is, this could be a good way to show the center area of low pressure just by seeing the vorticity around it, just by seeing all the strong winds around it. So typically at the center of all that vorticity is where the center area of low pressure is. So that's the reason why we're looking at the multi-model surface winds here. And as I said, if you want to take a look at the timings, top right-hand corner is the best place to find it. Just by seeing it already, we can see some of the winds that are trying to consolidate here with a new low pressure system that starts to form off in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico here. According to most of the models here, actually all 3 of the models have the same general idea here in the latter stages of Thursday. As this continues to move on through into Friday morning, you can see how the system tries to intensify a bit further, and it really starts to consolidate with a bunch of tropical storm force winds here surging from these storms. And then as this continues to head off further to the north, I did not get the GFS. I did not put the GFS up there, but we got the Euro and the HWRF, so it's good enough for this frame. You can see how we have a broad low pressure system here according to the Euro, but then a more confined low pressure system according to the HWRF. And the HWRF loves to exaggerate it a lot. I mean, this model is perfect for rapid intensification, but if there isn't any rapid intensification, it kind of over exaggerates the winds or the damaging winds with these storms. So I don't think it will be this intensity, more or less, but it does say that it has a little bit more of a condensed area of low pressure, and so we're definitely going to have to watch out for that. And then by Saturday morning, you can see how most of these models, GFS, Euro, and the HWRF, that's when it gets really close to making landfall. The Euro actually says that it doesn't make landfall quite yet, but the HWRF and the GFS both say that this will potentially make landfall here just south of New Orleans, probably just to the west of Venice, and probably just to the east of Intracoastal City. Now, not saying that that's a definitive area of where it's going to make landfall, but that's where both the GFS and the HWRF says this will make landfall. A lot of strong damaging winds surging on through here with the storms on the eastern side, especially as it slams the coast. So you could potentially see some storm surge in upwards of a half a foot to maybe even a foot in some spots, on top of the amount of rain that you guys would have. And then as this continues to move on through, then you could potentially see some more damaging winds for places along the coast there, from Mobile all the way over to Panama City Beach, as well as areas near Mexico City Beach, moving on further down through. And that's some pretty strong damaging winds even onto Saturday and Sunday as this moves off further inland. So we're going to take a look at the GIF here for you all. We have multiple GIFs of this. Not only is it aesthetically pleasing to look at, but it also gives us an idea as to where the track is and how intense the winds are in some spots. So the highest miles per hour I found in these runs specifically, the GFS found winds in upwards of 49.3 miles per hour. The Euro, not as strong, up to 47.2 miles per hour. And then the HWRF, which I said is very aggressive and tends to overdo a lot of events due to its intensification process. The HWRF model does say that it could get an upwards of 57.2 miles per hour in some spots. So something to really watch out for as this continues to move on through. But that is your multi-model surface sustained winds there, not wind gusts. Now, if we take a look at the total rain accumulation according to the GFS, you can see in some areas here, especially near Biloxi, you have some heavy amounts of rain over 6 hours here. This is not exactly the total rain accumulation for the entire event. This is the highest I found for rain rates per 6 hours. And what I found here, according to the GFS, is that you could have rain rates in upwards of almost 6 inches per 6 hours. That's about an inch an hour of rain, which is pretty insane. And the Euro actually says it's going to be a lot more intense than that. Almost 9 inches of rain per 6 hours here, which is absolutely insane. That amount of rain per hour could create very significant flooding in some of these areas. And so we definitely need to monitor this with the utmost caution. And speaking of flooding, or at least rain, we're going to take a look at the Weather Prediction Center quantitative precipitation forecast. And so you can see in some of these areas here that could be impacted, having upwards of 2 inches from these dark reds all the way up to 10 inches here in these little yellows in the browns right within here. Maybe even higher than 10 inches. That would be near Biloxi. Not exactly in Mobile. Mobile would probably get 7 to 10 inches, but very high amounts of rain expected here within these portions of the deep south, and they could potentially be impacted by this tropical cyclone. So my final thoughts on this is my tropical cyclone landfall outlook here. I still have my possible here. I actually re-extended it a bit further to the east again. I probably should have kept it there, but when I issued my first tropical cyclone outlook, it had a wide possible area here from like here until right about here. But then I shrunk it to where it was something like this. And now I re-extended it again with the little lip up there towards Mobile, Alabama. But I also extended the probable area right within here all the way closer towards Venice. Not exactly in Venice, but it's a bit further to the west of it. And so just because the landfall could be right within this area right here doesn't mean that areas to the east of it won't be impacted. As a matter of fact, areas to the east will most likely get impacted and will be impacted worse than areas that could see landfall. So definitely something that we're going to want to take a note of, and that in later videos I most likely will add another category here which could indicate a higher chance of a landfall within some of these areas. So definitely something we're going to want to watch out for as this continues to progress. All right, that's going to be it for me here this morning. If you guys did like the video, please be sure to leave a like. It really helps me a lot. Subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Leave a comment down below. What do you think Invest 92L or a potential tropical cyclone Claudette could do as this heads into the Gulf of Mexico? How strong do you think it's going to be? Where do you think it's going to make landfall? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. So that's going to be it for me. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone.